someone here says, so the challenge is, sometimes in the new systems, it's sometimes not clear that there's more information.
Yep.
It was the episode with the Twinkie factory. That's kind of amazing that we just had
the little arrow on the right, but we could highlight it a little bit.
fudgy bars. Well, no, it's just funny because the challenge, I thought, the entire text of the challenge was, I am currently trying to unbrick an Arduino.
I'm sorry.
The actual challenge is for $100. What is the worst that anybody has broken a piece of technology?
I got this.
And were you able to fix it? Multiple stories, please.
While I'm holding a cup of coffee, so you know how gaming PCs will often have an open fan on top?
Uh-oh.
And that was back in the day when Jordan would just have his PC hanging out to the left of his desk. With a cup of coffee on his desk.
Ooh.
Oh,
right.
no.
Jordan turned and dumped 16 ounces of hot latte goodness directly into the open fan on top of his computer.
Oh.
As one might expect, immediate blue screen.
Yeah.
Oof.
After very judicious applications of light cleaning, and that's terrifying, and
I love it.
some good drying times, and a lot of prayers to a technology god, it did work again, but I sure did think that I shorted out a $1,700 piece.
It actually worked after that?
It did.
Wow.
My suggestion would be get a giant Rubbermaid tub, fill it with rice, and then just climb into it.
Yes, that's where you belong.
Just gonna
You
make
son
us
of a bus.
bill again, huh?
That computer ran
Let's-
great and didn't smell so nice.
Wow.
Keep going down the line, Alex.
I have a question first. Does it have to be my fault?
I think the idea is that it's something that you've done, but you know what? Go for it.
Well, I mean, the two are sort of related.
Okay.
I'll tell them in reverse order. Okay,
Please.
so our apartment has pharaoh ants,
Oh yeah.
which is annoying. It's a common pest. They're teeny little ants.
Oh, they're really, really
They're
small.
very
ones?
small. They like eating crumbs. They're not terribly destructive. They're not poisonous or like harmful. They don't bite you. They're just annoying because they're gross and they smell.
Right.
I was sitting at my computer and I see one walk across my screen.
Uh-huh.
And I go to squish it
Oh no.
and immediately realize it is behind
Oh no.
the glass.
Oh no.
And the ramp from action to regret was just like, bing! I was just like, oh, come on!
Oh.
I was able to disassemble the monitor carefully because I've never done that before. Somebody very helpfully in the chat said like, oh, it's trivial. And I'm like,
I don't know about that.
and I managed to clear it out, and it was fine. The reason I asked about it being my fault is because there was one other ant-related event. So I used to have an external drive for CDs, and I hadn't used it in a while. And I was like, oh, I need to read a disc. And I think I tried mounting it and went. I was like,
Oh, that's a bad noise for a hard drive to make.
that's bad. And the tray was jammed. So I opened it up, and it was full of dead ants.
Oh no.
Like hundreds of them.
Oh my god.
I was like, why are you in here?
Warm, I guess.
Terrible. Oh, it was nasty.
I wanted to ride the carousel.
Anybody between Alex and Ian got a?
I have so it's interesting. I was like trying to think like, have I ever had a piece of technology that I've broken that badly? And I, aside from like putting iPods through the wash, which I'm sure everyone did at some point. But like when I was there was a period of time where after I moved out of the house that I was living in with Morgan and Bill,
Right.
And I moved out to Gordon Head. You guys don't know much about that time because I didn't really communicate with anyone because I was quite depressed actually. And my landlady was a piece of work, like left Chick tracts like unironically out everywhere.
Wow.
And had like very interesting things that she would talk to me about with regard to her lifestyle and the things that she did to keep herself healthy and whatnot that were just terrifying. But I'm not going to go into. But yeah, one of the things that she said to me is like, yeah, we get ants sometimes at certain times of year. Don't worry about it. Basically, and I had this was one of the first places that I lived after after high school and whatnot. So I had my whole setup of video game consoles, big mountain of them, and I realized at some point that the ants were going after the technology, and so I ended up disconnecting all my consoles from the wall because they would climb up the power cables to try and get into the transformers at the back. But I only realized that this was what was happening after they did completely, fully invade one piece of technology, my cell phone charger. Which at the time was this dock thing that sounded like it was a cylindrical thing because I had a little bar phone. And I realized at some point that similar to what Alex is describing with the hard drive, I picked up my phone off it and just ant.
No.
And so I didn't so much accidentally brick it as find every, and again, I didn't know much about these things because I'd just freshly out of high school a year ago. I found every toxic looking chemical that I could in my bathroom and laundry room, dumped them in a bucket, and then took the charger and put it inside.
See, it almost seems worse that they're alive. I opened up this CD drive.
I'm going to make a personal request, and can we please stop talking about ant-specific and
Thank
bug-related
you.
things, because I'm actually getting really uncomfortable.
All right.
Sure. Sure.
Thankfully, neither of my stories involve ants.
Awesome.
Two
Thank
really
you.
quick one, or one really quick one, one much longer. The first one is Desert Bus related, though. It was from last year when I was putting together the buttons.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so last year's buttons and this year's button run off of these Wemos D1 development boards, which house an ESP8266. This will mean certain things to people in the chat and nothing to others. Point is, it's one thing is the ESP8266 is what actually does the work. It sits on top of a development board that has the USB port and allows you to flash it with all the stuff. Turns out you're not supposed, actually I'm going to turn my mic on. You're not supposed to connect the USB and the battery power at the same time.
What?
Because if you do, you will cause the diode on the development board portion to do its job and keep current from running in two directions. And it did. And it got very hot, this one little component, and then it fell off. And that was the end of that development board.
Goodbye.
Okay.
Thank goodness that's why you didn't have more buttons that year.
I think 5 was enough.
The real story is the story of my laptop. I bought myself a what is it? A ThinkPad 286, I think. It's one of the smaller ThinkPads. Doesn't matter because you can Hackintosh it, which is why I wanted it. But in order to Hackintosh it fully, you have to replace the Wi-Fi card. But because it's an IBM device, they have in the BIOS a whitelist against any other Wi-Fi cards but the ones that they put in them. So I say, well, I want to Hackintosh this. I guess I need to hack this BIOS. I can't do it myself, so I'm going to, I'll have to extract the BIOS from the laptop, which meant unscrewing the top, pulling the keyboard off, pulling the handrails off, and then clipping a clip to the top of the BIOS chip, attaching it to a Raspberry Pi, doing some commands in Linux, and pulling the data files off, then sending that data file of my BIOS to a Russian man who lived in New Zealand,
Whoa, hang on.
and giving him $20. And in 24 hours, he turned around and said, here's your new BIOS file with the whitelist removed. No problems whatsoever there. Except I go to disassemble my laptop, put the clip on top of the BIOS chip, and it's like, that's not holding. It's not holding. So I keep trying to add it on, and I push the clip just a bit too far, and it latches to one side of the BIOS chip, which is very tiny, and latches to a surface mount resistor that is just past the BIOS chip on the other side. Grabs that resistor and goes bunk, removing this thing is about 1 millimeter by 0.5 millimeter.
Oh no.
The size of this resistor.
How far did it go?
I have no idea. It's somewhere in my carpet to this day.
Just gone.
Yeah, it's just gone. And so I'm like, well, what do I do? What do I do? what I did was I started Googling as hard as I could. And after about 4 hours, I managed to find a PDF file which happened to be the entire circuit diagram for the laptop that was given to the Chinese manufacturers who put together the motherboard.
Ah!
Crap.
How did you? Never 4 hours
My
of
Google
intense
flu is,
Googling.
my Google flu is strong, Jordan.
I do not doubt that with what I've seen you create.
So I'm able to actually finally trace out this, because it doesn't look like the circuit board, it's just the circuit diagram, which tells me where things go to where. And I eventually tracked down, okay, that resistor was page, this one. Good. And that's how I knew what the value of the resistor was.
Ah, not something you want to guess.
No, it's not something you want to guess.
So-
Now that comes to the question, where the F do you find a resistor that size?
And
Because you can't just go to your local electronics
Right.
shop. I tried going to my local electronics shop, and the smallest one they could find was 3 millimeters wide, which was too wide for the solder points. So I finally managed to get this laptop up and running by going through some old PCI cards that I'd had just stashed in my old parts bin. Going through them and getting in there with my multimeter, just in these tiny
measuring
tiny
every resistor.
and, well, of the ones that seem to be the right size.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Finally
Too
found-
small to have markings on them?
Yes, they're too small to have markings on them.
Oh no.
And finally found one, got it off barely, and then just managed to do the bussiest hack job of soldering this surface mount. This
There's something that tiny.
very, very well. Okay, the joke answer is very carefully. The real answer is you put some solder on one side of it to tack it in place, and just solder the one side with tweezers, and then you add some heat to the other side and just kind of hopefully wick some solder on the other side. Managed to do that. Stopped using the damn clip to do my BIOS. Grabbed these awesome little one-wire clips that grab a corner of a chip each, and then use the Raspberry Pi to redo it up. And now I have a IBM laptop which has a good Wi-Fi card, so I can use Mac OS 10 on it.
Amazing.
Wow.
So just so we're clear, there's a kill field for electronics components under every desk, right?
Oh, pretty much, yeah.
Like if it falls off your desk, gone, dead,
I
respawned.
What a wonderful photo.
This one's not my fault, but James is asleep. So, a couple years ago, this is a lot quicker of a story. A couple years ago, we did a video for Wizards of the Coast at PAX. They were announcing they were about to do their big, like, we're announcing all of our products all at once thing at
Yeah.
PAX. And so they asked us to come down a couple days ahead of time and film a thing with their community guy and their new CEO. And we did it as like a big one-shot. They had the Paramount Theater, and we were going all through the Paramount Theater, stopping and talking to different people, and I was running a gimbal, and it was a whole bunch of hell. And so it was like, okay, yeah, we can easily do that, but I don't, like, my laptop, I have to edit this thing while we're down there. My laptop is not going to be able to do that. But the value of this contract meant that I could buy a new laptop. So my current work laptop is because of that. And so buy a brand new MacBook Pro, and we're sitting there on the Clipper going down to Seattle, and James spills Coca-Cola all over the keyboard.
I remember that.
Some keys still stick. I spent the evening in the hotel room with the thing of warm water and some rubbing alcohol, popping all the keys off and cleaning them. And,
I would not have wanted to see you at that table. I think that would have been legendary.
James felt awful, and I was just like,
You died.
no, I was just like,
Like it wasn't intentional.
yeah. No,
but
exactly.
yeah.
I wasn't upset with.
Oh, no.
I was upset. I wasn't upset with James, so I was just like,
Yeah.
No, I meant like you
well,
died. Like, well, yeah,
that just
is-
happened.
There's nothing I can
there's
do.
a certain level where something happens and you're like, I can't even get angry because if I do, I will get too angry. I'm just gonna have to put in some effort and deal with whatever this is.
I was going to say, what really saved James that day was that the Clipper is a double keel vessel, which makes it difficult to keel haul someone.
I
Would
have
have
an
gone like
alternate theory,
you go under the one and then just like ram into the other keel and then around again.
which is that every friendship has an amount of health that increases over time. And once you've accumulated enough, it can take a big hit like
Oh
that
yeah,
and not
yeah,
die.
yeah. Oh yeah, there was no problem.
That-
But it was just like,
Yeah, that makes me think of the time that I showed up to help someone move, and they opened the door, and I had to decide whether or not I still wanted to be friends with this person.
because they hadn't packed anything.
They hadn't packed anything.
No, like
They
nothing
had-
at all?
That was a windmill
Literal
guess.
0.
Oh my gosh.
And it was a 2-bedroom apartment. The truck is coming in a couple hours. They have to be out today. They hadn't started packing. They hadn't cleaned. It was,
See what I can
and I just and I had that reaction. I just went, all right. Well, I'm gonna take charge, and I'm gonna explain why we're gonna do this way. But if you want to get moved today, here's what needs to happen.
Important question: are they still a friend?
Absolutely yes.
Who would do that?
Best decision.
Wow.
So-
that's,
Life function.
Funny
They
story.
they hadn't moved. They'd never moved before in their life, and they had no concept of how long it would take.
When James and Adam
And at that
were
point, I
moving
moved like 15
into
times, so it was like,
our
I
last
can do
place with Diana and I, it was almost like that. Like Diana and I, we were hyper organized.
I bet.
We were ready to go. We had moved our entire apartment with a cargo van because that's all they said that they had at the time, even though I had secured a moving van months previously. Anyways, so we were already moved into the new place. We had already signed off with our landlord, and then we were going to James and Adam's place to load their stuff. We show up. They're half packed, not clean. So I was like, is this a relationship I need to be in right now? Then James's dad showed up, and I went, this is your fault!
I love it.
I bet Neil was just like, James.
Yeah.
Just like head shake.
am I a joke to you?
Yeah.
So
By the way, I still use that laptop.
And cleaned and
Yeah.